Hello and welcome everyone to what will probably be my last Flash video until the season finale. Remember though I said probably in case I upload any other Flash videos. Now in this video I'll be discussing my final predictions on the identity of Savitar based on the events of this week's episode of The Flash, how he revealed himself to Caitlin, the look on her face, the instant submission to him, and alignment of his cause. There's one character the majority of viewers are leaning towards him being Savitar, and I'm kinda thinking he has a good chance of being so, but doesn't mean he is the only one I'm thinking of. I'm not certain he is. Now if you haven't checked my most recent video on The Flash on the expected finale death, please make sure you click the link at the end of this video and let me know who you think will be this season's major death on the finale. Now that video was based on certain set photos that came to my attention, but there are other set photos that did come to my attention as well right after I uploaded that video. I might upload a video on those as well pretty soon. Now back to the 19 episodes of Age Question. Who in the hell is Savitar? Now everyone is going crazy over who Savitar happens to be, and the majority is assuming he's the one and only Ronnie Raymond. It is almost unanimous. Some base that prediction on the fact that he had this Ronnie-like leather jacket when Jay Garrick was telling the stories he heard about Savitar on the full finale, and some based on the fact that Caitlin gave in to him so fast, and some because of both. I'm of course not going to base my prediction here on his leather jacket. So first off, and before I continue with this, I was right and for the right reasons. The someone will betray you part of Savitar's prophecy is about Caitlin being Killer Frost and not about her keeping the piece of the Alchemist stone a few episodes ago. I had to get this one out of the way because there was this long argument about it in the comments to one of my videos, irritating argument as well. But let us discuss the finalists I think happen to be competing for the title of the God of Speed, Savitar, and the reasons why each of them could or could not be him. The person under the suit of Savitar has to be someone Caitlin trusts, happens according to Jay Garrick to be the first man to be ever granted speed. He hates Barry because he took everything away from him. He gets trapped in the Speed Force 4 years into the future, so the period he has known Barry as Savitar doesn't seem to be that long and doesn't seem to be that short either. There are also 4 people or evil versions of them that both Caitlin and Killer Frost would trust blindly at this point. Ronnie Raymond, Cisco Ramon, Barry Allen, and Julian Albert. There are 4 people she knows loved her as Caitlin, and if she wants to go all the way as Killer Frost, what better than to have one of these, in more of an evil capacity, lead her through the way. We know it's kinda silly to think it's Cisco, we know it's most probably not Julian, even though Julian removing her necklace kinda keeps him a suspect, but chances either of them or Savitar are slim to none anyway. Now I know this kind of contradicts with what I said early on about us being wrong about thinking Julian Albert might be Savitar, but I'm saying it here because there's also the Alvin Desmond arc in the comics, the twin brothers. It could still be Barry somehow or his time Remnant, it could be Ronnie, but there is also this one other person who loves Caitlin enough, and while she might not trust him as nice girl Caitlin, she would probably trust him as Killer Frost, the version of herself that wants to go all evil. Now we were told this character might come back and not as the Black Flash, probably because we were promised the actor himself, Teddy Sears, whom we have known as Hunter Zolomon or Zoom. Now I know this is kind of far-fetched, but I wouldn't discard any possibility at the moment. It is the least possible of all the possibilities. I think Cisco even has a bigger chance of being Savitar than Zoom, but I thought I would put it out there because it only hit me today while I was thinking about that look on Caitlin's face when she saw who Savitar happens to be. So let's discuss all 3 options. So why did I think it might be Hunter Zolomon? For starters, I think it would be really good. I'm guessing there is enough irony in her following the guy's lead post what happened close to the end of season 2, with her trying to do whatever she can to escape his grip, partially looking down at how submissive to him and pretty evil her Earth 2 counterpart happens to be, enough to convince her to try and help her, even though that leads to her death. Earth 2 Caitlin, or Killer Frost that is. And it isn't like Caitlin didn't seem to have some feelings for the guy, and up until the very end. That scene when she was trying to stop him at the very end of the 2nd season, trying to talk him out of destroying the multiverse and killing Barry with it, that had some sort of emotion to it, and wasn't just about saving her friend. Now combine her love for fake Jay Garrick before realizing he was Hunter Zolomon, aka Zoom, with her being now an evil enough version of herself to accept him for who he is and who he was, and he got a perfect evil couple, and it would be easy to understand at that point, considering a version of Zoom could have come back seeking revenge upon Barry for taking everything away from him, his life, his love for Caitlin, the whole 9 yards. There would be no clear explanation though as to how he happens to be the first man to be ever granted speed, so that makes it much more difficult for him to be Savitar. If this is all about people who Caitlin trusts and who care for her, who better than the man who resembles hope and heroism to follow as a mentor as he resembles the other end of the continuum? Besides, he's one of the most trusted members of the team when it comes to Caitlin. They are not just good friends, but they are family, and good family at that. With Barry Allen though, the question remains, how did he ever become Savitar, and how can he be the first man to ever be granted speed as indicated by Jay Garrick on the 9th episode of this season? There are so many theories about how Barry could end up being Savitar out there. There is this version of Barry being Savitar, there is the Time Remnant from Season 2 being Savitar, but my favorite so far is Flashpoint Barry. I don't really know how Flashpoint Barry would work, but I really think it would be interesting to watch if they have a good story built up for it. Coming to think about it, at the end of the day, he took from him the perfect life. He had his mother, his father, and the love of Iris in that version of his life. Now, I've read comments and reviews and speculations over the past few weeks that rely on the fact that Barry is the first man to ever gain speed on Earth 1, which, 1, is not something that we can fully confirm, and 2, it is not really what we're looking for here. After all, the story is relayed by Jay Garrick and is more general to the multiverse rather than Earth 1 specific, so it takes all speedsters into consideration, regardless of which Earth they originated from, and in that case, Jay Garrick probably existed as a speedster even before Barry did. There is one way though that would make Barry the first speedster to have ever existed, or at least give the illusion he is, and that would be if Barry traveled deep into the past and spent time back there, a decently long time enough for him to be known as the first speedster to have ever existed. That could actually also apply to Hunter Zolomon. Now, with regard to the Time Remnant theory about Barry, I think it wouldn't really work, considering he did die right before our eyes in the process of stopping the crisis event that Zoom was attempting to start. Now, since I did mention the Alvin Desmond twin twist from the comics, I have to mention this one as well. There is the chance that he's Barry, but not exactly Barry. Malcolm Thawne kind of Barry, or in other words, the long-lost twin from the comics, taken in by the Thawnes, presumed dead by his biological parents. Nonetheless, he would still be the same age as Barry, and he practically wouldn't be the first man ever granted speed. However, they will find a twist to make it seem that way. Of course, if the show goes by that story, they'll have to probably give him a shitty background story, not in the sense it is bad, but in the sense he had it rough rather than he was raised by the Thawnes. Now that at least would give him enough reason to seek vengeance upon Barry for living the life he should have lived as well. Again, blaming Barry doesn't really need to be rational. Most of the human race isn't really all that rational, especially when it comes to vengeance. Ronnie Raymond, our final contestant, and the one a lot of people are already convinced and certain in a lot of cases is actually Savitar. I'll actually discuss this kind of certainty at the end of this video. Now, it does make sense at the moment because of the trust Caitlin put into Savitar right off the bat, even though if it were to be Ronnie Raymond, I think calling her child wouldn't be really the way to go. But let's see why he could be Savitar. Number 1, when Barry went into the Speed Force to save Wally a few episodes back, he was met by many characters including Ronnie, and the whole arc of the episode involving his conversation with Ronnie started with Caitlin holding a baby, the child that would have been if he were to stay alive and they were to make a family. It just feels like a clear clue to what Barry has taken away from Ronnie, even though Ronnie actually died, helping on his own volition. Number 2, we were never given a body. When it comes to Ronnie's death, he was eaten up by the singularity that opened up at the very end of the first season of the show, but nonetheless, we were never given an actual dead body. If you remember, we saw Barry save Martin Stein and come back with him, but there was never a Ronnie to be found. What if that took him into the Speed Force? It would make sense then that he ended up in a different time period. In the past, most probably. After all, Savitar was trapped within the Speed Force 4 years post the death of Iris, and yet has managed to step out of his prison month before her death when Wally opened that portal. The Speed Force, in a manner of speaking and to make it simple here, does exist out of the realm of time. Number 3. Ronnie could believe Barry was the cause of all of this. His loss of Caitlin, the life he could have had, given it all happened only because of Barry's feud with Eobard Thawne. And even though Eobard Thawne is the one in the bad here, when you lose the life you wanted to have, you wouldn't usually think straight. Besides, being stranded in the Speed Force would probably drive you crazy. Now, another person that Caitlin might be capable of trusting to a decent extent considering his sacrifice, and to whom all this might apply as well, considering his dead body was pulled in by the end of the first season into the Singularity as well, happens to be Eddie Thawne. So I'm not discarding him completely, but I'm giving him a slim chance there. I'm mentioning Eddie Thawne here because he would have good reason to believe Barry took everything away from him, like literally took it away from him and for himself, including Iris, who is now Barry's fiancée. The question that would remain here would how did Ronnie gain his speed? Or Eddie, of course. The same question and the same answer would apply to him. Alright, so let's assume my theory about Ronnie being stuck in the Speed Force were to be true. What if the only way he would have managed to leave then was by working on a way to gain speed? In that case, of course, the show will need to explain how that would be possible for Ronnie within the Speed Force. The only other way I could think of is Ronnie managed to get out of the Speed Force, got stranded in a different time, in the past to be specific, managed to create a formula like Velocity 7 and Velocity 9, or perform an experiment that would grant him speed, making him the first man to be ever granted speed in a way. That as well would make him into someone who granted himself his own speed, as stated by Savitar in an earlier episode. Now finally, if you ask me who I believe Savitar is, I'll tell you to look back at all these predictions, cause all I have here is predictions. Some fans use phrases like Barry's time remnant is Savitar, Wally is Savitar, Ronnie Raymond is Savitar. That is certainty, and certainty is based on fact, and fact needs proof, and proof needs the kind of clear-cut knowledge that we don't have here. You might be right, and you might be wrong, and I might be right, and I might be wrong. Even all my predictions here, they could as well end up amounting to nothing. But with that being said, let me know in the comments, and for one last round who you believe Savitar happens to be. Let me know as well what you thought of this week's episode of The Flash. I hope you did enjoy it the way I did. And remember, it would be much appreciated if you drop me a like if you like the content of this video, and if you subscribe if you want to see more reviews and theory videos on What the Geek. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.